Well, it's Thursday, February 22nd. It's 7 p.m. Eastern time. I'm Bob Harris. This is the Football Diehards YouTube channel. It's time to go on the hot seat. But first, footballguys.com is the website. Appreciate you joining me here every week. Usually Wednesdays, but we make exceptions for special cases. Also on Saturdays at noon for my Ask Me Anything live streams, hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, all that nonsense. Then like me or not. I'm an acquired taste. You don't have to. I get it. If you don't want to, I'll be okay with that. So I have a great guest today, as always. Usually on Wednesdays, and unless we have a fantastic guest, and we have a fantastic guest, and with that, I'll welcome the fantastic guest I've lined up, Sam Holt. From Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life, and most recently from some great work with the women of fantasy football at the Super Bowl. Sam, how are you?
I'm awesome and so happy to be here talking with you, Bob. I appreciate you allowing me to jump on, even if it's not your normal Wednesdays. Being able to talk football with you and just shoot it is so much fun.
Yeah, so one of the things, like, I want to say I met you 2 years ago at the Expo.
Yeah.
And sat in on the women of fantasy football in a tiny little room that was packed to the gills. Great group of people. Some of your colleagues in that enterprise, Kelly Singh, a friend of mine, have been on this program. Roxanne, all right. Before I get ahead of myself, tell everybody what went on and about your adventure at Super Bowl 58.
Oh my gosh, it was quite the adventure. I have to say big thank you to the women of fantasy football for giving me the opportunity to get a media pass and go and experience Media Week before the Super Bowl. I got to stay Monday through, I had left Thursday morning, but as a part of those days that I was there, I got to be there for the opening night kickoff at the stadium. As media, you are down on the field amongst the players and amongst the stage. And after they do the big intro for each team, they have players break out amongst their little stands. So you get to go and walk up to each player and ask them questions. And the ones that aren't in their little booths are just walking the field. And literally you can grab any of them that are walking past you that don't already have a camera right in their face and just ask them questions about the lead up to the game and ask them questions about anything. I had some really amazing conversations that I haven't yet posted with so many players, just the ones that had a little bit more time to give. So someone like that I had a long time talking with. I spoke with Sam Darnold for like 10 minutes just about his experience with San Francisco, his experience so far in past seasons. Obviously now he's kind of considered that a veteran compared to Purdy. So what that dynamic has been like and what's he learned from that experience? What has he appreciated from it, taken from the coaches? So many great conversations with all the players that night, plus all of the press conferences, different seminars. I got to sit in on an NFL PA conference, which was amazing. Getting to talk and hear from the players about the issues that are so important to them and getting to ask them different questions as well. I want to say we talked turf versus grass for like a solid 15 minutes because it was so intense, but a lot of really, really great moments and kind of news and stuff and different things that like Next Gen Sports is doing to get more data to the teams about the players. Really inside football, just fully incepted inside every inner working. And it was so insanely cool.
Yeah, I really enjoyed catching many of the interviews we were posting on social media. By the way, hello everyone in the chat: Scampers, T-Bone, Dame, Andrea, Slade, Royal Slade, and John Bonneville. Haven't seen you for a while. Great to see you. And we'll start taking questions here shortly. So you can go ahead and throw them in the chat if you want. And we'll get to them as they become appropriate. But I did think, so tell us a little bit about the women of fantasy football, what the whole, the whole goal of that organization is, and kind of how you go about getting an assignment like this.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, everything about that is just, at least from my standpoint, getting to have opportunities with them. It's all about creating opportunities for women in the space and, trying to shine a light on all the women that are doing amazing work and also, create opportunities for those that are trying to get into the space. So, I got the pass day access just as a result of one location. It was very close for me to fly to it compared to I live in California. But two, just they wanted to give me an opportunity to spread my wings and see if it was something that I would be able to excel at. And the goal for me that week was go and get any content you can. Just try and say yes to everything. Try and see as much as you can. Get as much footage as you can, but also just stretch your legs to see what you can do in terms of not only gathering content, but it's just skill, being able to just go up and talk to these people. And it goes back to just the basics of like how you interview and like a work setting, but you're doing it live in front of so many people and you're jumping around. So it was a really great skill set and experience I got to stretch for all of that. And I'm just so grateful for them for the opportunity.
So honestly, you're here because I was super impressed with the interview skills. I thought you did a fantastic job. Every question I saw you ask was pertinent, on point. There was no fluff. It was all business and just, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of it. But when you went in, what kind of plan did you have in place as you like you go at your first time, you're not really sure how this is going to work. You don't really know what's going on, yet you seemed incredibly prepared given those circumstances.
I don't know what that says about my improv skills, if I'm just like missing out on a different career path that I should just be doing more improv. But I honestly went in with just the goal of being a listener and not missing out on an opportunity if I had that moment. So if the mic and there was a dead moment, like in any conversation or any meeting, if there's a dead space and you have something to say, you got to say something. So for me, I wanted to, I didn't really know what opening night was going to look like. Once I assessed the situation, I realized, I can just go up and ask anything I want. I just weaseled my way into whatever front of the line I could get to and just listen to every single question everyone was asking. Because then you start to notice trends. There's some people that are hitting, the main media points right off the beat, off the top. And there's some that are asking very random questions, like if you what would be one food that you eat the rest of your life versus like, what coach do you hate the most? Like some very weird questions where some that are very like obvious trying to get a reaction. And then there's some that just weren't well thought out, or they were questions that weren't well researched. So I just wanted to find middle ground questions that I just genuinely wanted to know, for someone like Brandon Ayuk, for example, he's the youngest in this offensive group and he's got so much to work with and he gets to learn from all those rounds. So I think that my question was, what is it like for you to get to be on the field and share this moment with the veterans around you, and what have you taken away from it? And I got a really great answer from him. Just, I have a front row to greatness and getting to watch them work every day and watch their work ethic and watch how they change. So just getting to kind of read the room and then ask the question that made the most sense for that time. And there were definitely times where I was like, okay, I got a question. And then someone asked something almost exactly the same next to me. And I was like, so I had
it's like getting sniped in a draft.
Yeah, no, exactly. It was almost like sniping for questions. So I had to kind of rework my question or try and just stand there a little longer and just come up with another one. And I tried to get at least one question to each of those podium players that I could. People that were impossible. No shock. Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, I could not get anywhere near. It was like it was deeper than a bar on like St. Patrick's Day. Like it didn't matter that I was a girl or whatever I was wearing. I was never getting to the front of that bar. Like it was not happening in the slightest for me. So I was like, all right, we're going to be okay with this. And we're going to go and just try and get questions to everybody else.
So just, so there's a couple things. Like number one, I mean, a lot of questions are just seeking attention for the questioner.
Yeah.
There was none of that with you. I just want to say this about you. And so when I saw you this year at the Expo, we were talking a little bit before we came on about imposter syndrome, something I think most of us in this business have. I've had it. I can remember like literally sitting in panic when I started writing for Sports Illustrated in like 2001. Yeah. Like every column I submitted, I was sure was going to be the one where they discovered I was a total fake. And I mean, I still feel that a little bit. I get no sense of that with you. Also, when I saw you at the Expo this year, we had met the year before, and we've interacted a little bit. You're just totally a confident person and totally comfortable in the environment, right? And I think that's important, and it showed through it. So, when I was watching you at the Super Bowl, I felt like this is the same thing. And I mean, I think it's just more about you and your personality. But when you go in there, did you feel as confident as you sounded?
It's so great to hear. I've gotten such amazing feedback, and everyone said, Sam, you sound so confident. You knew exactly what you were going to ask.
100%.
And I can't tell you how much it's important for you all to go back to the videos and just watch my hand holding the mic, or just watch the camera, because literally it's shaking the entire time because of the nerves that were pulsing through my body. I think that I just have a good way of compartmentalizing in my brain in situations. And I think I got that from a very young age where, you know, you go to, you know, a sports practice or something, and you're the only one, you don't know anyone. Okay. It's like, well, I'm here for one goal. I've got to set this aside and just get the job done. I've been very, very good at compartmentalizing for that reason. And once I got over the shock of I'm on the field, everyone's around here, Andy Reid is looking at me, I need to come up with a question. Once I got past that, I was like, all right, we're going to pull up our big girl pants and we're going to get this done, because there's no chance I'm going to walk away from this stadium without a single video or a single question. So it then became like a competitive thing in my mind of like, okay, we're setting a goal and we're going to hit it. And everyone knows me so well, and I feel like so many people are the same way in the space. We're competitive. So as soon as I set myself the challenge, I was like, we're going to do this, and I am going to be the best that I possibly can at this. So that's ultimately what it was. I will tell you, as soon as I left and I got on the plane coming back, it was just like this immediate, like,
adrenaline
just
flows
like
out.
This huge melt of like, oh my God, that happened. I have to go back to reality. How can I end up in like a work meeting in the next 2 hours?
Yeah. And
but
so
it was fun.
I mean, it totally get it. This, you know, early on in when we were doing the magazines, I want to say we started in the mid 90s to do this. So I tried to get player interviews, and I interviewed some of the biggest names over the course of 10 or 15 years. I mean, LaDainian Tomlinson, you're sitting there having a conversation. I think when you can kind of like, just like put it in that context where, you know, and I did like a lot of like one-on-one phone interviews that lasted like an hour, and you feel like you get to know them, and you can kind of do that. In your case though, I mean, you don't have a chance to like get a feel for the room, you know, with each person. You have to come up with a question that catches their attention right off the bat. Did you have like a list of ideas or just thoughts, or were they contemporaneous, kind of on the fly?
Well, there were some things I knew I wanted to ask. Like there was a few that I was like, okay, I saw the player's name and I was like, I've got to come up with something to ask that person. One that I knew I wanted to get off the bat, when I saw that Isaiah Pacheco had a booth, I was like, I have to ask him how he feels about being made fun of for his running style. And so I was just kind of workshopping the question in my head. And when I finally asked it, his face like lit up, because he loved the question. It was just something fun. And he's like, oh no, I love that I'm now like a GIF. And apparently people like jumped on the comments of the video, like, he pronounces it GIF, guys, this is terrible. Don't draft him.
That's what I thought.
But it was fun. So, and then there's other ones like with the coaches, because obviously, you know, they're the head coach, and it's just this other level echelon in my mind of football brain. And I didn't want to have an unintelligible question for them. So for me, it was, you know, with Coach Reid, his team, the Chiefs, every single player, when I say their demeanor and mindset when asked, and I was listening to all of the answers from players from different news outlets, when I say the level of confidence was like, this is just another day, it really felt like that. So I asked him, like, how do you get them to have this, like, this is just another game? He's like, well, first, they know that it's a Super Bowl. We do know, but it's just about making sure that they're, you know, taking care of their business. And so it's clear from the way that he has coached his team top down of how they're supposed to look at these different things and how they can, you know, compartmentalize or manage their expectations going into each big game. And he's clearly done an amazing job at creating this environment for that team. Of course, Super Bowl champions again, that they know what they need to do to raise the bar for themselves every single game. And it really brings into a question, like, can this truly be a dynasty? I'm looking at the Chiefs now similarly to back in the day when the Spurs were that kind of boring NBA team that just kept winning, and it was just Greg Popovich with his whole mentality and mantra, and it was just, they were the cool, calm, get the job done team in the NBA. And I feel like the Chiefs are approaching this kind of cool, calm, get the job done for the NFL.
Being there matters. I feel like it's the same way. It's why I'm in the best ball rooms already drafting. So by the time August rolls around, I feel really good. But your boss, Matthew Berry at Fantasy Life, well, that's the famous word. You know, how do I get better in this business? Reps.
Yes.
Reps in every single thing, people, including mock drafting and things like that, or best ball drafting, or all those things. All right, we've talked some shop. We'll talk a little more shop here, because just an interesting thing, graphic designer, illustrator, this may come as a surprise to you. That's how I got into this business.
Oh yeah.
I was a graphic designer and an illustrator and did things like that back in the early 90s. And kind of morphed that into creating football content. And next thing you knew, I was not doing as much illustrating and design. What's the direction you're heading?
In terms of for football, I mean, for me, I love design so much. I love drawing so much. I can't imagine not ever doing that. Fantasy football and fantasy life is my part-time. My full-time job is I'm an associate art director for a health and wellness company that does supplements, which challenges me every single day of the week. So I feel like I'm the kind of person that unfortunately doesn't like being bored or having another challenge. So what I love so much about football and fantasy football is that every year, every season, I have a new opportunity to grow a skill set, to make a goal of, okay, well, I didn't do this last year. I want to do this. I want to improve here. I want to improve there. It just, everything you can continue to expand upon. So for me, it's just more about, I don't know if it's whether I go down more podcasting or more analysis or more graphics. It's just trying to find the right balance for myself where I still feel like I'm learning. So whether it be in design or whether it be in analysis, or hopefully with more interview opportunities with players as media, if that comes across, I'm just going to look at that as another challenge and opportunity to grow. So I think for me, it's more about where can I continue to learn and innovate.
30 years in, that's still the goal for me too. I mean, you want to try new things and you want to learn new things and also apply those skills to the game that we cover and the hobby we partake in. So we do have some questions out there. By the way, if you just tuned in, it's Sam Holt. Everyone does that from Fantasy Life. You can follow her on the X at Samantha R. Holt. And find her work and at MB Fantasy Life. You can follow them on the X as well and fantasylife.com. We were talking a little bit before and JSC, we see you in there with your Bijan Robinson ranting. And let's just get that out of the way because JSC is very excited about this. Bijan did say he wants to get 2,000 yards this year. I'm with him 100%. He has my support in this. We want to look at the new coaching staff there. Obviously, we had the issues with Arthur. I see an animal.
Sorry, it's not.
I need more.
He's so needy. He's so needy.
Hello.
Isn't that just the worst little grumpy face?
That's the best grumpy face I've seen all day. I love cats. You might not know this, but I'm a cat person as well. There are two of them staring at me from the landing right now because they heard yours. No, they want to be on now. So Bijan Robinson, we have a new coaching staff in Atlanta. Zach Robinson comes over from the Rams. I want to say, I'd like to draw that parallel from the workload we saw Kyron Robinson get in that McVay offense that Zach Robinson will obviously be installing there, and saying, wow, if Bijan Robinson was, down the stretch run last year, it was weeks 13 through 17, we were looking at 25 opportunities a game for Kyron Williams. What would Bijan Robinson do with that? Where are you gonna view him? How are you gonna view him as a draft asset as we head into this season?
Sure. I think it depends on obviously league format in terms of PPR versus standard and superflex and all that good stuff. But in terms of where I'm ranking him, I can imagine him slowly going up the ranks for me and ending up within probably even that top 5 upper echelon of running backs off the board. I feel like there's some that are going to be very consistent, like CMC. I can't imagine dropping out of 1. It's hard to argue him even at 2 with the level of consistency and the way that team is run and the way that Coach Shanahan has that offense running. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I don't see him dropping. But to that point, if I'm looking for upside and I don't get that 1 or 2 pick and I'm sitting there at 5, 6, or 7, and I see Bijan is there, it's going to be really hard to not grab him. Because very similar to how they opened up Kyron Williams this year, I think that there's nothing but the sky's the limit in terms of what Bijan was able to do, because I don't think that he's going to take a dip. I think it's only going to continue to improve. Also still think it's a little bit of a question mark in my opinion at quarterback, but given his skill set, I think that it's going to supersede any quarterback play that he's going to see. He's going to still be incredibly effective. Yeah,
solid offensive line. JC is arguing that he sees Bijan CMC as similar skill set. I mean, like when Bijan came in, we were talking generational talent.
Yeah.
I don't know because we haven't seen it yet. The thing that sets McCaffrey apart is he is the perfect fit for the Shanahan offense, right? I mean, that full 3-down skill sets, receiving ability, the speed, takes to the blocking scheme. Everything works in his favor and his playmaking ability. I would like to see more of that from Bijan. And we just didn't get to see it last year because of Arthur Smith. So we have another question in the chat. As a Steelers fan, I believe this question is coming to you. How do you feel about the hiring of Arthur Smith? I have feelings about this. I'm curious about yours.
I'm going to be honest. When I saw the news come through, I was like the Michael Scott meme, and I just was screaming, no, like, why? However, thanks to the experience I just had at Media Week and getting to talk to multiple Steelers past and present, I will do a little name drop selflessly and say that I talked to Coach Bill Cowher, and I said, what are you excited about for the Steelers this coming season? And I posed it as a very open question. He didn't ask about Arthur Smith, but that was the first thing out of his mouth was, I think people need to look at the tape again on Arthur Smith because he's about to do something really special as a coordinator there for the Steelers. If you look back at all of his coordinator positions and other teams, he had a lot of amazing success with those offenses. And he was really just singing his praises in terms of what he's capable of doing. He's like, and there's reasons why coaches get the head coaching opportunity because of the successes that they had. But sometimes it just makes more sense in their scheme to stick with the coordinator position. So if I have to just go based off of, what the church is telling me, and I don't mean to say that, Coach Bill Cowher is part of my church, but, whatever he says goes, I'm going to say that I'm going to take the time this off season to relook at those things and give him more of a chance than I would have had I not had some of these conversations.
Right. And so I'm kind of like, I'm where you are on this, right? Like, and John Bonneville thinks Mike Tomlin was trying to get fired. I think the sticking with Pickett or Rudolph might do that.
Yeah, that would do it.
So how do you feel about those two quarterbacks? Like, you have to pick between the two. We're going into the season. Those are the two guys. Who should it be?
Well, I think I'll look into that the same way that we looked into going into this past season. This past year was year 2 for Pickett. So I think that when it comes to rookie quarterbacks, it's unfair to throw them out there year 1 and see something not work and not allow them the time to correct for those mistakes. Year 2, we did not see that next level jump that we needed to see in order to stay with that situation. We also have, in one of my humble opinions, one of the toughest divisions in this league in terms of youth in our division. You have someone in Joe Burrow who, injury aside, he would have had a fantastic season. Lamar Jackson, an MVP who has been able to level up every year. And what's very similar about these young quarterbacks is their ability to run, ability to scramble, ability to throw the deep ball very well. Kenny Pickett has not done any of those things off the charts astronomically well. He's been basically a game manager. So I think what the Steelers organization is going to have to do, and we've heard a lot of buzz about it, is look for that next step because we are also a legacy type of team that is built off of multiple years of success. And we have to look at the roster and we have to look at someone like TJ Watt and see how many years do we have left of good TJ Watt? How many years do we have left on some of these other young pieces? Someone like George Pickens, he's young and hungry, and we're not the ones that are, too shy to deal with a wide receiver that says, give me the ball more. We're going to need to get him the ball more. Someone like Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren, these are pieces that are still super young and have a lot of ceiling left. And if it's not going to take, if I feel like if Ben was still here and Pickett had more time to sit behind him, he would be better off. But he doesn't have that seniority, that veteran presence to help him grow. So what I'm hoping for is that we move on and go to someone like a Justin Fields and we grab him because not only are we then going to get the mobility and the down the field arm that we need, but it will give Pickett time to sit back and adjust and level up his game as he needs to. I don't think that he is the future of the franchise. I think that we do need to make a move, and I'm praying it's not Russell Wilson because we just had.
I was just going to ask you that.
Just had an old quarterback in Ben, and though we can consistently have winning seasons, a winning season isn't a Super Bowl season. Those are two different things, and I do not see Russell Wilson as the answer. Please.
Yeah, I wonder. Like, I've asked myself this question. By the way, Mason Rudolph, 6'5", like 240. He is not a small man.
Yeah, no, he's a big boy.
So yeah, he is. And John Bonneville is always chiming in with helpful information. He would rather go with Trey Lance. I don't know if we'll ever see Trey Lance.
I know. I was just talking with Sam about him yesterday on our Dynasty show. I feel like a good place for Trey would be to sit behind someone like Geno Smith in Seattle and just like have a year where he doesn't have to be the guy and just get his confidence back so that way he can get back to his fundamentals. I think that some team is going to benefit from having him as a backup, but that's what he's going to have to do. He's going to have to be a solid backup for a team until someone gets hurt.
Yeah, Geno Smith just got the deal done, the renegotiation done this afternoon that will likely keeps him there. Not 100%, but like 90, 95%.
But hey, backup money is still money. So I think that something
sure.
like that would definitely make sense. And again, take the pressure off of him because unfortunately, I feel like he got squashed in that pressure with San Francisco.
So you do some dynasty talk on your weekly Discord with Sam Wallace, Fantasy Life. So some interesting questions. One, quarterbacks are always a big thing in dynasty. You want to have that guy for the long term that you can count on. If you were sitting here today, Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen is your QB1 long term. I'm gonna say short term for me. It's gonna be Josh Allen forever, right? Short term. In all my redrafts or whatever, I don't see Patrick Mahomes going ahead of Josh Allen. I think you can make an argument. I was in a super flex draft. Dynasty startup Superflex mock. I can say that fast 3 times. I can barely say it once. And I want to say Mahomes was the first player off the board in that draft. Yeah. What do you think about that? How do you see that situation? Or the quarterbacks in dynasty value?
Sure. I'm going to say it this way. I did draft Patrick Mahomes in a couple leagues this year. I'm not going to do that again. What we've, again, seen from the Chiefs is that they don't need to kick it into high gear until it gets later in the season. I don't know that there is another Tyreek Hill out there that's going to jump over to the Chiefs or be grown from a rookie pick or what have you, or if Rashee Rice has that in him. I still don't think that's going to be enough to take him to next level, whereas someone like Josh Allen is going to have the insane rushing upside that you just can't find elsewhere, plus the arm and everything else. I think for me, it's going to be Josh Allen as well, redraft and dynasty as well, if I can grab him anywhere I can.
I think for me too. But I think Mahomes may have a longer career or a longer, high in production, but I do think that, that level of mobility, the rushing touchdowns set Allen apart a little bit. There are other quarterbacks we like. I am the hammer. Anthony Richardson is my nail. I cannot resist him. Yet I keep getting crushed in all my early drafts. He's going like many of the people who are drafting with me, listen to my radio program. They are aware of my love for Anthony Richardson. So they're jumping ahead of me. I don't know how high I'm going to have to chase him, but I'm here for that. Yes. How do you see him? And is there another young quarterback that maybe you would prefer at a better value?
I think Anthony Richardson, obviously, he's someone I love a lot of, and I have him in a couple as well, or I had him this past season. I had him in one league where I had drafted him and CJ Stroud and ended up doing very well, throwing Anthony Richardson in first. And then when he got hurt, I had CJ Stroud, so I was just fine. I feel like the value on CJ Stroud is going to go kind of much further through the roof than what Richardson is this coming year, given the injury and given what Stroud just did. In terms of young quarterback that I'm looking for upside, I'm still going to count Jordan Love as young because he has been sitting behind Rodgers and been able to not have those reps, those hits that are going to age him. What I love about him too is he is with an offense that has tailored themselves around him. And I feel like there's a lot of playmakers he's had very consistent chemistry with. So I think that for me, as compared to Richardson, because I feel like the offense is a little bit more questionable with the Colts in terms of having multiple playmakers around him that they can utilize. Is Pittman going to be there next year? Not 100% sure there. Could they grab a couple more pieces? I feel like you've got a bit more consistency in what's already working with Green Bay. And for that reason, I'm going to try and grab a little bit more Jordan Love.
Yeah, I want to, go back again. I keep hammering this point, but you go back to June when Brian Gutekunst talked about, why didn't you get a veteran free agent wide receiver?
Yeah.
And he said, because we have a great young quarterback who's going to grow with this receiving core. We saw the signs of that. We saw the actual evolution over the course of this season, where he started out red hot with the touchdowns. It was fantastic. The completion percentage was low. Then there was a lull on the touchdowns in the middle of the season, but then he came on. Having Matt LaFleur as your play caller is a super bonus. It's a secret. It's a secret weapon. I feel like Matt LaFleur is way overlooked as a play caller. Sometimes it's easy to overlook how the play calling is setting up opponents and setting your team up for success. And I think with LaFleur, I see it on the regular. And I agree with you too, John Bonneville. I think Shane Steichen is the coach to have. You see this guy who first had Justin Herbert in Los Angeles and led him to be the super high-end passer, or at least a high-volume passer. And then we saw him go to Philadelphia and work with Jalen Hurts, where he had the rushing ability. Now he has the best of both worlds. And yes, Royal Slade, you crushed me in that draft, and I appreciate it very much.
Don't you love it when the sniping happens and it ends up in the chat and they're like, by the way, I got you.
I've been got a lot on Richardson there. That way it'll be like, like Jahmyr Gibbs last year. I chased him all the way up with all the people who listen to me and come to the chats and listen to the radio show. They're drafting with me. They know they're going to have to chase them. We single-handedly drive up ADP on certain players because I just can't let go, and I will chase them to the moon. And I do think that's it. And no, the Chiefs cannot afford. It's true. They're not getting Justin Jefferson. No. But like realistic possibilities, Mike Evans. Now we heard Jordan Schultz's report that kind of the Bucs had a soft deadline of Monday to get a long-term deal done. And so now they're going to, they'll still negotiate, but it seems like much less certain. And I thought it was fairly certain going into, as we headed into the year that Evans will be back. And I don't know that he's leaving, but availability, and if the money's right, I feel like he needs to stay in Tampa. But Michael Pittman Jr., you mentioned, is a possibility. T. Higgins, a possibility. It sounds like he'll be franchised. So there'll be pieces that could be of interest in Kansas City, or as you mentioned, the draft. And I want to say Brett Veach has not been a standout drafter of wide receivers. Then Rashee Rice comes around and maybe, shows signs. Like Brett Veach, by the way, is 100, just what a great drafter. You look at the pieces he's brought into this team, whether, and you've heard him talk about it. There are going to be 7th round running backs who are going to run for 1,000 yards. And we saw him draft Isaiah Pacheco same right after making that comment. Here we have it. And so and the other pieces, I mean, he's done a fantastic job in general of assembling that defense as well. So like that, hope he can get another wide receiver in there that could maybe maximize the value of Patrick Mahomes like Tyreek Hill did. I just feel like they made their decision. They're not going to go high end on the money. So maybe their view has changed a little bit since they moved on from Hill, but they're winning Super Bowls, so I don't know how much it needs to change.
At the end of the day, they're winning Super Bowls given what they currently have, I think a lot of people would argue that the reason they won the Super Bowl this year was because of direct result of their defense. So I think they're going to probably do something more in terms of investing there rather than going out and spending money on a veteran receiver in order to round out the offense a bit more, maybe take a few more flyers. It is Patrick Mahomes. He can throw a pass to someone in the stands and they can get a touchdown. He can do absolutely anything on the field. So I think ultimately it just comes down to, this old adage that defense wins championships. And if your quarterback is Patrick Mahomes, you're probably going to win a Super Bowl.
To that point, John Bonneville in the chat, Chiefs jumping the Bills to get O.J. McDuffie, such an underrated move. Totally true. What a game he had in the Super Bowl.
Oh my gosh, I know.
Snead was awesome, and the safeties were awesome. It was just a great showing. JSC wants to know, he must know, Sam, what do you think of his sleeper teams, the Colts and the Cardinals? Are the Colts a sleeper team?
I don't know that they're a sleeper team anymore with Anthony Richardson.
Richardson. Come on now.
I don't think they're asleep. I think they're awake. I think they're awake to the fact that now they have, a generational talent at the quarterback position, and they have nothing but the sky's the limit in terms of it's up to them to not fumble the ball and the bag in terms of how they handle him, because he is such a sure thing. I think I saw a question around there too, like, are they going to franchise tag Pittman? They'd be kind of dumb not to, but at the same time, do they have the money to spend and go out and grab a couple pieces and make some trades? I think that they do. I think this is going to be a really interesting draft for them in particular. I think that there's a lot of the Colts have to do to continue to see that grow. And on the Cardinals side of the ball, obviously we saw amazing success, with Trey McBride, Murray back being healthy. things go well when everyone's healthy and everyone's happy. It's just a question how much happiness happens in Arizona, because it seems like there's always some sort of, can't tell if it's the organization or there's something going on in the back end. And it's like I smell burning. Is there smoke? I don't know. But where there's something like that, there's fire, and I have questions. So I think that I'm a little bit higher on the Colts than the Cardinals for that reason.
And by the way, yes, I just dated myself by calling Trent McDuffie OJ McDuffie. Imagine that. Old Dolphins receivers come right to my head. I can't help it. Somewhere out there, Rondé Gadsden is saying, "What about me, Bob?" Yes, you too, Rondé. Colts 100% tag Pittman. I don't know that they do. I would. But I don't know that they will. I'm not entirely sure on that one. I want to say on the Cardinals. I mean, the notion is that they'll land, Marvin Harrison Jr. early. Mm-hmm. We'll see if they can keep Marquise Brown. I wonder if that would be the case if they do land Harrison. They have Trey McBride. Kyler Murray to me was kind of a surprise, a revelation, if you will. I'm going to go ahead and give my apologies again to Jonathan Gannon for my ridicule early in the year at that meeting where I thought everyone was checked out. Clearly, they were checked out at that moment, but they checked back in and they played hard for him. And I thought he did a fantastic job considering what he had. But Kyler Murray came into an offense that he is totally unfamiliar with. I thought he looked better than competent, right? I thought he looked really good. Could we see like Kyler Murray being a sneaky value, like moving back up into that top 5 range?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know about top 5, but I feel like he's, top at 10, maybe sitting there at 7, 8, I could imagine for Kyler, just because there's so much talent right now at the quarterback position in terms of what they're capable of doing. Maybe by the time the drafts get closer in like July, August, we see him hit around that QB5 mark, just in terms of how he looks in this off season. Again, coming off the injury that he did and then having a good season this year. As soon as you wrap up, he's going straight back into treatment and getting himself right so he can be even stronger still, because you can't stop paying attention to that type of injury and taking care of your body in that sense. So depending on how he does this off season, how he looks in training camp, of course, I think that, and of course, if they make some amazing picks in the draft, I could imagine his value going up as well. And yes, Trey McBride, steal of any draft.
Trey McBride, steal of any draft. I would not sleep on, we will sleep on Michael Wilson, but I don't know that he's not going to be somebody who emerges finally. By the way, we're not here for James Conner slander, John Bonneville. Not having it, sir.
No.
Okay, you can do it, but I'm not listening. Like he does, they do. I mean, I'm not arguing the point, but I think he's better than he's given credit for. Way more productive, and the price is right still in the draft.
Still, yes, a consistent good value running back, kind of, I would say volume matters when you look at someone even like David Montgomery and the switch he had going to the Lions. And I didn't know what he was going to look like going into the season. And Montgomery definitely proved me wrong. And I think that in a similar scope, let's say the Cardinals get a rookie running back, maybe in a couple later rounds, I'm still not going to be shying away from getting the value that I'm going to get with the volume that Connor is going to get going into next season.
Damn, I need to write that down so I say it good like that. That is 100% true, right? I mean, that's just the thing. And I know, and you're not wrong, John. I mean, like more juice would be great, but I don't think that he is not something. And there's some talk in here about the Bengals needing Derrick Henry. I saw this, Joe, so like a lot of talk that they're going to move on from Joe Mixon to Bengals this year. He took the haircut last year, worked out a new deal. Will they ask him to do that again? Would he be willing? He seemed eager to do it last year. I don't know that he'd do it again. The Bengals, let me rephrase this. Who doesn't need Derrick Henry? I mean, eyeball test wise last year, I thought running behind a horrible offensive line, getting fewer touches than I would have liked, still looked like he had some of that burst, some of that long run ability. It looked like the same guy to me. Looked like Derrick Henry to me. How do you look to you, and how are you going to treat him in drafts this year? I'm seeing him in early best balls, anywhere from around 5 to 7 is where he's been going.
I think that's a good value for him. I agree. I think he was hamstrung by a poor offensive line and just overall poor play for the rest of the team. You can lean on someone like Derrick Henry when you have the offensive line to back it up for him to be the offense as they've done in years past. And this was not the year for that. But I do think, to your point, that what he proved is if he ends up somewhere else, he is going to still have it in the tank for you if you've got the security he needs in order to perform. I think that as a Steelers fan, I'd be horrified if he ended up with the Bengals. But as a fantasy manager, I'd be elated because
Ravens
I feel
would
like
be worse for you.
Oh my God. I thought it was going to happen this offseason, like in the middle of the year. And I was like, oh my God, when the trade deadline came, I was like, if Derrick Henry ends up with the Ravens,
Right.
what am I going to do? I mean, like for fantasy, let's go. But for like myself, my God, like, and it's
Cowboys,
such a fine
Chargers.
line.
I mean, they're going to be. I think there will be teams out there that are interested. Jim Harbaugh, I'm told, likes to run the football. If he doesn't, Greg Roman does.
Yes,
so we'll see how that
100%.
plays out. I want to talk dynasty a little bit. Have a dynasty question from Andrea. A lot of news about Justin Fields. I'm with Justin Fields. I would like to know. I would not like him and Caleb Williams cluttering up my social media feeds as well. I would like to see Sam's cat. I would like to see me and my fiance going to concerts. I would like to see a lot of things not named Justin Fields and Caleb Williams clogging my feed. What's the right answer for the Bears?
I think the right answer is to stay with Fields and sell that pick for more picks. I think that there's so much success and so much value to be added by having multiple draft picks. And I think no one's going to say no to that. I think this could be a move where they use that to get other pieces because there's so many other things they need to address. They need more receiver talent besides just DJ Moore in order to help open him up and give more opportunities for Fields to continue to running the ball. Let's get him some young rookie offensive line help, get him some more safeties, let's get any other talent to round out this team a bit more to bring them success. I don't think the answer is to move on from them. However, if they are feeling that skittish, like I said, my Steelers would be happy to take him off your hands. You know, we've done deals before. You took Chase Claypool. Maybe they got a sour taste in their mouth from that. I don't know, but we can definitely figure something out. I think Claypool is now with Miami. And so Steelers know when to move on from someone, but we also know when there's a good bargain on the table. And I think we're not going to walk away from it.
Bengals and Packers. I think so. I think the running back market is going to be interesting. Players, I think, know that there's been a reset there a little bit. Going back to Fields and just dynasty hopes. Fields to Falcons. I mean, I think that's what a lot of people are seeing, and we'll find out. Kirk Cousins is going to be in that conversation there as well.
Absolutely.
I would like to see him back in Minnesota. So would Justin Jefferson. I think if Justin Jefferson wants it, so would I. But there's going to have to be a deal. I mean, they're going to have to pay Justin Jefferson soon. It's not getting any cheaper. If they don't do it this year, it's a horrible mistake on their part. So kind of with you. So help me out with my dynasty conundrum. I have a problem every year. Every year I have this problem. I don't know when it's time to cash in, move on, drop out, whatever. When is it time to tear down? What are you looking at when you look at your dynasty teams this time of year and you're assessing your chances of being a playoff contender, or if you need to start racing for the bottom?
That's a great question. I think that this is obviously like my spring cleaning time of year where I like to look at my rosters in Dynasty and see, am I doing a hard reset? Am I going to explode this and get all the draft picks I can? Or do I feel like I still have contenders? And I think it comes down to when you rank your players across the board, your numbers 1 through 10, how many at the position that you have. And of course, in Dynasty, we can kind of have this Thanos collect them all and get all the Infinity Stones mindset as much as you can. But you also have to find value in those, 10 through 25 ranked players and see where you're sitting there. So I think it's more about establishing those values across your team and seeing, compared to other teams, where you're sitting. And if you're sitting in a league where it's gotten top heavy on one end, I do think that, and you're not in the favorable side of that, I think that it's a lot of value in blowing up a team because you get nothing but draft picks, you've got nothing but capital and value. And when the draft does come around and you've got these young pieces, you've got other people clamoring to get those pieces. So then you can really start to puzzle piece and rebuild the way that you want because you've got all of that value. But I do think it's about, taking that inventory and seeing, okay, do I have a quarterback that is injury prone? Do I have a good backup? And I think this is going to be another season where, even if you're in a standard league, I can imagine a lot of leagues dynasty wise wanting to add bench spots so you can hold on to quarterbacks a little bit more and just have that depth, because we obviously saw so many injuries this past year. So I can imagine that being a very volatile position as well, and people wanting to have and maintain that value. In Dynasty, it's all about maintaining your value. But yeah, I think it's more about just taking that inventory and seeing, where's my receiving core hitting? Do I have one stud and everything else I wish I could mop the floor with? Okay, maybe it's time to work on getting some of those mid-round guys, those consistent floor guys, in order to round out the points that are coming in at that locker room.
My biggest weakness in Dynasty is my unwillingness to part with players who will never do anything for me, because I feel like they will yet still do something for me. I know it's not true. I tell myself this lie every year, though, and I can't let go of them. What is the secret to throwing the baggage overboard?
Do you mean it just in terms of like ripping off the Band-Aid and saying, okay, I need to part ways with you?
Yep.
I think where you can find the relief in that, it's more about who can I get excited about instead to move on? Because I don't know about you, but like for myself, I'm very much if I find a new song I like, I listen to it over and over and over again, and I don't get bored of it. But if I find something new that can be a new favorite, I think it's more about finding the new favorite, which will allow you to let go of the ones that you've been holding on to.
Yeah, it's for me, it's like it's an impossible thing. I'm Bob Harris, in case you just showed up here. You can catch me on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. I want to make sure I remind you, we're only doing, they call it baseball season. I don't know why. It's really the football other season, but it's serious. They treat it like it's an actual baseball season. So we are down to Saturdays, 3 to 5 p.m. Mike Dempsey and myself doing football stuff there. Also, you can catch my work at Football Guys all year round. I'll be doing my notebook. I'm going on vacation next week, people, and so I won't be here. Yes, St. Thomas is calling for me.
Let's go. That's a vacation. Good for you.
That's a full week. So I'll be gone. There will be Saturday. I'll be here at the usual time, noon. And then next week, no Wednesday, no Saturday. I'll be back the week after that. Adam Parstad from Football Guys will join me on the live stream here on the hot seat. So be ready for that. And we'll get back to the serious business here. Jaden Daniel. So I don't know. I'm not a draftnik. Everyone here knows this. I don't know that you are either. But we have impressions of these players. Jaden Daniels is a guy, not Anthony Richardson, because he's not he's as tall, but he's not as big. But he does have that rushing ability. I don't know that he has the short area accuracy. Seems like he has a good long ball, though. Does he? Ideally, you'd like to see all these rookies sit for a year. Obviously, they're not. So we've seen mock drafts having him go anywhere from inside that top 3 down to probably, like, I've seen the Giants mocked, I think was today. Did Daniel Jeremiah have a mock to the Giants at 6? What are your thoughts on him if you have them?
In terms of where he ends up or where I would be drafting him?
What your assessment of him is? Obviously the rushing talent is something we want in these players. Is he a player you're going to be interested in a dynasty draft? Let's say if you're like out there roaming adding a little depth and hoping for some high end.
Absolutely. He also had a really good accuracy last season. So his turnover rate was very, very low. And I think when you're looking at these young rookie quarterbacks, we're looking for guys that have that level of confidence and consistency. And I think that's what other organizations are looking for as well. Plus, the quarterback position has changed so much over the last 10 years. If you're not a mobile quarterback, you're not going to make it in this league coming into it. So I think he's someone that's going to, rise up and down going through until we get to draft day, seeing where he ends up. But I could imagine him being on the rising side of that. And I think for the same reason in fantasy, he's going to have that rise as well. I think, again, it depends on the league format. But if in Superflex, I love getting someone that's a young rookie and just pairing him with like a veteran. So I might be trying to target him in that sense. Anyone that has the ability to throw the ball deep, be able to scrimmage, and have that rushing upside, you're going to want in fantasy for that value, for that rushing upside. Does that make them a little bit of a hindrance and a liability because they're young? They haven't learned to slide yet, and they could get hurt? Yes, it is. But that is the risk reward that you get with that position. And it's up to the team drafting them that's going to find ways to protect them, educate them quickly on how to, save them from themselves and create longevity for themselves over their career. I think besides Josh Allen, who they can tell him to stop it and slow down as much as they want.
He can say it and he's still
going to do it. He's just when you see him running, it's just like this, just across the field. And you're like, okay, no one's stopping that guy anyways. So might as well keep going. So someone like that aside, Lamar Jackson aside, until we see it from them, again, going from college to NFL is a completely different ball game. It's hard to say, oh, he's going to get hurt week 1 in this league. It's hard to guess those types of things. But what we do know, teams are going to try to get the risk reward with a rushing quarterback upside much more than they had in the past, because this is a new formula. Again, the league is changing, and I think that fantasy is changing as a result.
John Bonneville mentioning a player, Dontavian Wicks, who probably will, I'm just going to take a wild guess, going to be one of my more highly owned, definitely highly rostered player for me in best ball. He's the cheapest of the Packers wide receivers, tons of upside. I like that. Maybe he rises up a little bit as we get closer to the season. I do like that one. Also, Royal Slade, pro coaching will help Daniel stay healthy. He will be really good. This sounds like it's spoken by a Patriots fan who thinks he has really good coaching and could use Gene Daniels in New England.
They need somebody in New England. I'll tell you that much. They do not have the quarterback answer. Like, you think the Steelers don't have an answer? We're looking at it like, well, at least we're not dealing with that situation.
They also don't have an answer at wide receiver. And I did see Daniel Jeremiah's latest mock this morning, I believe, had Marvin Harrison Jr. going there. So it's going to be interesting. These young receivers, are we going to be chasing the tight ends? I mean, Brock Bowers seems like he has everything going for him. I think also what he has going for him from a fantasy perspective is last year's success. Sam Laporta's success is going to make it a lot easier for us to overpay for rookie tight ends this year. I feel like we'll be doing that, but I might be okay with it.
Yeah, I think we're okay with it. I think it makes sense as to why we're okay with it as well. When you look at someone like Sam Laporta, Trey McBride, these young tight ends having success right out the gate. Again, I think this goes to the NFL's in another state of flux and change with the tight end position and how much more they're getting utilized. Not just as in blocking schemes anymore, though it is helpful when they can do it. They're true options now. And when you've got the size behind all of these tight ends coming in, it's just a lottery draft. I mean, I myself took several rookie tight ends this offseason, so I took as much Sam Laporta as I could. I took a lot of Michael Mayer. I did not get enough Trey McBride, but I took a lot of Luke Musgrave, another one that I think is going to be slept on going into next year, another one that's going to continue to teeter up in terms of usage, in my opinion. So it's really more about where they end up that makes the most sense in terms of where I'm drafting them. But also, I love a tight end flyer at the end of any draft. So rookie draft aside from dynasty going into regular redraft, I'm always going to tack on a couple of these guys if I can and if it makes sense for value. I'm maybe not going to grab them early. I'm not going to reach on some of these guys. But I'm not going to walk away from a draft without at least one that I get to let simmer on the end of my bench.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I think the one that's been, Ben Sinat's been talked about a lot. Jatavian Sanders is the one I hear about. Some of the tight ends, the young tight ends that will be coming in. Not all of them pan out. We realize this. Tucker Kraft too. I agree with that. I thought Tucker Kraft did really well. I just wonder if they're not going to be diluted. Dalton Kincaid, obviously a piece in that offense. So I think it's going to be in a good spot. Gabe Davis probably moving on. Khalil Shakir, is that a player? I mean, is he a guy that can have a legitimate enough role, or do they need another true wide receiver too? Or is that maybe something that, Dalton Kincaid at some point? I felt like Kincaid was heading for the wide receiver 3 role. Now I feel like he, basically is a tight end, but now I feel like he's going to be sharing that more with Shakir than maybe I expected. And that maybe they're going to need a new wide receiver too, assuming Gabe Davis moves on. And it sounds like he thinks he is based on his Instagram shenanigans.
Oh, we love a good Instagram shenanigan. I agree. I think that he's likely going to move on. I don't know that Khalil Shakir is ready for that level in terms of not just volume, but in terms of anticipation of what it takes to be a wide receiver 1 or 2 and just to have those eyes on you. I always think that receivers, when they're young, they do better to have someone to play off of. Whether or not that's enough to have someone like Kincaid on the other side to draw that, I think he's going to need somebody else. And I think that it's just, iron sharpens iron when it comes to receivers. They always work better when they've got someone that's their magnet that's going opposite them. But also just really quickly back on the rookie tight ends, it has not typically been the standard that year one tight ends are successful. It has typically been the formula that the sophomore year, the junior year coming into the league, those tight ends have more success. So I'm not going to be shying away from the Michael Mayers that had a flash in the pan. Oh, they're washed.
Good
no,
call.
That's still a young team and there's still a lot of opportunities for them. He's still big. He's still fast and able to get the catches and has good hands. So some of these guys that come in, even if, like I'm saying, if they don't pan out year one, that position is not typically meant to pan out year one. It's been more of an anomaly than not when you have someone like Sam Laporta go off to begin the year. Most of these guys have success later. I think Tyler Higbee, what is it, his third or fourth year with the Rams that he ended up having his big season. Some of these guys just take a little bit more time, and it comes down to the weapons around them. And it comes down to their own personal growth with the team and with coaching as well.
I feel like this is a Darnell Washington comment.
Might be.
they haven't moved. I'm the Steelers. Look, I'm totally with you on that, and I do think Mayer is going to be a guy that probably, one of the things I like to do after the season, I'd like to start making my list of players who came up short and disappointed us, and he'll be on it. I mean, there were higher expectations for him, although. Rookie tight ends. This was like the first year we saw that. I feel like this is just, kind of a thing that, players are coming in more pro ready, right? They just are. And that's at all positions across the board. I want to go back and touch on the Jets a little bit. Aaron Rodgers. Davis Allen. There's another second year tight end. Here we go. The Los Angeles contingent speaks. In the form of Mr. Scampers looking at those, lusting after a Rams tight end, not named Tyler Higbee. I'm with you there. I think that is an interesting one. The Jets, Aaron Rodgers, looks like everything's on track. I am a Breece Hall aficionado here. I have him currently as my running back 2 in early drafts. I think that could evolve a little bit. Bijan could move up. I'm still in on Kyren Williams, but not quite that high. I think for me, Breece Hall looks like the guy who, if he's going to get the volume that we expect him to get, and he got more last year than I thought he would get, but he is the big play waiting to happen. How do you like the early running backs? I mean, we're both on board with McCaffrey. Nobody's knocking him off the top. After that, how do you see it?
Oof. After that, I mean, I think someone like Breece Hall can end up in that top conversation. We talked about Bijan Robinson already. I think to just pull up like a too early rankings for next year and just give my 2 cents across the board on all of them. Because I feel like, of course, it's giving me just like rookies.
I got like, I'll just throw some names out at you. We talked about Bijan. So up there, high, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be up there. Jonathan Taylor is going to be up there. Kyren Williams is going to be up there. That group, you want to throw in some of the others. Travis Etienne finished high. I think people are kind of out on him a little bit. Devon Achane, I think people are maybe a little over-invested in. He's an interesting one to me. How do you feel about some of those plays?
I feel like Etienne's someone that's going to go into that RB2 range and be a decent value, because what I love about RB1 on a team that falls late is that it's still an RB1 on a team. So you're going to get that value. You're going to get the passes, and you're going to get their rushing yards, which again, I love about someone like Etienne. So I'm hoping that people are just so tired of him that he holds his value as an RB2 for me that I can end up getting later in leagues, because I think there's going to be enough hype around other players that he kind of just like falls a little bit, and he's going to be a good steal. We talk about, even like Austin Eckler, who I got to meet at Media Week, which
he's a great dude.
He was a delight. He was so sweet. I got to like walk with him to Radio Row because I was showing him the way, which is also just funny to like, I had like a West Wing walk and talk with like Austin Eckler. I'm like, nice. Who am I? What life do I lead? But I mean, I think, when it comes to that position, whenever you've got any of these guys that are going to be not just amazing rushers, but they're going to be amazing in the passing game, they're going to hold higher value. I mean, and just inherently across the board with the way that they're used. So I think that someone like, Breece Hall can end up in that top conversation as well. Swift, Gibbs, like you mentioned, I think that what we saw to start off with the Lions, I mentioned it before with Montgomery starting the season off very hot. I think that Montgomery is going to end up kind of having a bit of a taper going into this next year with Gibbs, but they could still be a good 1-2 punch. The Lions are incredibly hungry, and I can't imagine them making a shift between those two going forward. Another running back that, obviously need to keep an eye on is Devon Achane. Next to Raheem Mostert. Mostert, again, getting older, constant injury concerns there. So he's going to be a low-end RB1, but is Achane going to be that high-end RB2 you want to go out there and grab? I'm thinking so. I think between that round one, RB1, RB2, that top 10 to the 25 range, it's going to be interesting to watch them kind of shift and go back and forth.
It's crazy to me in the early best ball drafts, the value, Achane's going in the second round almost exclusively. Raheem Mostert, a forgotten piece. He's fallen off the radar. He's not gone, people.
He's not gone, guys.
He's old. He's not dead. I'm going to tell you, there's something to be said for that as an old person who's not dead yet.
And I'm just going to say 2 words: Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
Still these guys still there, not dead, will get the job done. So I feel like until they get hurt, the team's not going to walk away from them. And this seniority, unless again they move on from the team, we can't forget that. And I think we kind of fall into this trap of now it's this guy. It's okay, but it's not. but it's not. I had that trap with AJ Dillon. I'm going to admit it. I had that trap. I don't want you guys to fall into the trap. That's why we got to acknowledge it.
This is a factual statement by Mr. Scamper. It's just true. And he fits the scheme and they know what they have in him. So hasn't gone away yet. We'll see what happens. Everybody has just seen Sam Holt happen right here on the hot seat. Great job, Sam. Really appreciate you coming on. You can follow her on the X at Samantha R. Holt. See her work at Fantasy Life. Tell everyone what you have going on, where they can see you, and what you've got going kind of on a regular schedule.
Absolutely. Thanks again so much for having me on, Bob. Always a pleasure to get to talk football with you and answer all of your amazing questions from the chat. Love you guys tuning in, so really appreciate it. Follow me on Twitter at Samantha R. Holt. Like Bob said, you can find my stuff over on FantasyLife.com. This off season, myself and Sam Wallace, so it's the Sam and Sam show on Discord on Wednesday nights. Go ahead and tune in there, and we're just talking Dynasty the entire time. So between now and we get to the start of the season, everything's a ramp up. So there's going to be a lot of talk of rookies. There's going to be a lot of topics of how to start a Dynasty league if you haven't already. So any tips, tricks that you want from us in terms of our formats, a lot of shop talk when it comes to Dynasty. So please tune in for that every Wednesday.
Looking forward to it. I love Sam Wallace. I don't have to talk to him enough. I see him at the expo. I think, I met him. Now I need to get with him. All right, everybody. We'll see you here Saturday noon. I'll also be on the radio Saturday, 3 to 5 p.m. It'll be me and Dempsey, Jamie Calandro will be coming on. We'll have a couple beat writers. We're in that time of year where we'll do a couple beat writers every show and kind of start getting setting the battlefield for our fantasy fortunes going forward. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Good night. We'll see you next time. I'm Bob Harris. Over and out.